So I'm currently up at 2 o'clock in the morning when pretty much all the games are over, immediately recording my predictions for the 2022 NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. This is my third attempt at trying to get this right. The last two times were absolutely terrible. So I'm hoping to get as much right as I can this time around, and I hope this is my most accurate bracket I've ever made. To make this video more organized, we're gonna go by conference. So we'll go all the way till we reveal the winner of the West, and then the winner of the East, and then who wins the Stanley Cup. I feel like it's a lot more easier. Also, in the last two videos, I took a ton of time explaining who I think will win and why. This time around, we're just gonna keep it short and simple. I think it'll be a lot more easier to follow. I think it'll be a lot smoother, and I'm hoping to get more right. We're gonna start off with the Western Conference and go to the very top of the bracket, where I have Calgary and Dallas. Now, I really thought we were going to play Nashville, and that would have been great, but Calgary ends up getting Dallas. This gives me, as a Flames fan, terrible flashbacks to the bubble, but I'm gonna say Calgary wins this series in 6 games. When you compare the bubble team to this Flames team, there's a lot more to highlight. More competent coaching, more competent goaltending, and even when the Flames dominated the Western Conference a few years back, guys such as Kachuk and Lindholm weren't even producing at the level they are now. Dallas does scare me because of the bubble, but I do think Calgary comes on top. Moving downwards, we're going to the Oilers and the Kings, and I'm going to give this to Edmonton in 6 games. LA, they're a fairly young team. I think they mainly got in because of how weak the Pacific Division was this year, but that isn't discrediting their young talent at all. I just think that Edmonton has a lot more experience, despite LA having guys like Brown, Kopitar, and Doughty that I think will put them over the edge. Also, they have a lot of expectations because they have yet to go really far with McDavid and Draisaitl. Give LA 1 to 2 more years and they'll be a serious threat in the West. Going to the Central Division, our next matchup is Minnesota versus St. Louis. I'm going to give this series to Minnesota in 7 games. In terms of goaltending, I have no idea who St. Louis plans on playing, but Binnington struggled in the regular season and Husso doesn't have, I don't think, any playoff experience. However, Minnesota has had a rough time against St. Louis in the regular season, and these two match up extremely well against one another, which is why I think this does go the 7 games. Finally, to wrap up the first round, I'm going to generously say that the Avalanche beat Nashville in 5 games. Now, obviously, if Nashville had UC Saros, this would be totally different, because they are an extremely tough team, but you are playing against Colorado, and they've been explosive all season long. David Rittich obviously only had that 1 game in the postseason in the bubble, filling in for Cam Talbot, and you could tell he wasn't ready at all. So it'll be interesting to see if Rittich can handle the postseason. Moving on to the second round, we have the Battle of Alberta. This is looking like a nightmare scenario in terms of stress for me as a Flames fan, and I'm going to non-biasedly state Calgary makes it to the Western Conference Final, defeating Edmonton, we're gonna say in 7. Obviously, if it's the Battle of Alberta, both teams will be giving it their all, but I do think this again comes down to goaltending. Mike Smith has proven he's very good in the playoffs, but I'm going to give the edge to Markstrom once again. When these two go at it, it's extremely physical. It's going to be very, very tight, very close games because there's going to be no room to really create any separation. It's going to go down to the wire, and I'm giving it to Calgary. Then we have the Wild and the Avalanche. Again, another matchup where these two play extremely close. A part of me does think that the Minnesota Wild can go on an extremely deep run. I think they're very underrated and overlooked, but I did pick the Avalanche to win in 7 games. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not even confident about that either, because I picked the Avalanche to go extremely far the last 2 times I've done this, and they've disappointed again and again and again. But I'm giving you another shot, Colorado. Please don't make me regret this, because that leads into the Western Conference Final, where, yes, I'm picking the somewhat sexy pick and bringing the Avalanche to the Stanley Cup final. I don't like doing it. I don't like following everybody else. I try and keep it different, but there's also a saying that I always remembered: never ever bet on your own team. Now, that didn't play fully into my final decision, but I feel like if I have the Flames go all the way, one, I'm extremely biased, and two, you don't want to bet on your team to go all the way and then just get disappointed. I do think the Flames have a shot to win the cup, but I'm gonna give it to Denver. They have more star power. Nathan MacKinnon has burnt the Flames before. We'll give them one last shot. Now going on to the Eastern Conference, which is completely wide open. I think the Eastern Conference is going to be a lot different for a lot more people because there's so many possibilities and so many scenarios that can play out. The top of our Eastern Conference bracket shows the Florida Panthers and the Washington Capitals, and I'm going to give it to Florida in 6 games. Vitek Vanecek is a great goaltender, but I think that's ultimately going to be what is Washington's downfall. I also think Florida is extremely dangerous, and I do think they get past the first round. Next, we have Toronto and Tampa Bay. I really want to see Toronto make it past round 1. I know a lot of people don't want to see that because, haha, Leafs lose in round 1, funny, but they have so many stars. I mean, Austin Matthews lighting up this year. I'd love to see him go far, but I do think that Tampa beats them in round 1. I'm gonna say in 7 games. I know that sounds heartbreaking for Leafs fans, but I don't know their goaltending scenario. I don't know if Campbell's healthy enough to come back. I don't know if Mrazek's gonna come back. If they play that rookie they have, I think Calgren, I don't know if he's going to be ready. The Lightning have a ton of firepower. Yes, they lost some depth, but they're back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. I think they have the edge. Moving on is Carolina and Boston. This is going to be where I think I'm going to take my first upset. I don't know if you want to call it an upset, but I have Boston beating Carolina in, I'm going to say 6. Carolina, I love the team, but I'm uncertain of how well they can really do. I think a lot of people also underestimate Boston, and Freddie Anderson, despite having an amazing season in Carolina, is somewhat known for choking when it matters. I'm going to say Boston, and we'll see what happens. But our final pick in the first round in the East is the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Last time we did this, in the 2014 bubble predictions, I had the Rangers making a deep run. I don't know if the Rangers will be legit. Shesterkin's great. The offense I love. Panarin, Zibanejad, they're very entertaining. But I am gonna say Pittsburgh moves on and wins this series strictly because I think they have a lot of motivation to try and make this their last dance. Crosby, Malkin, and Letang are all getting up there in age. I don't know how long they're going to be able to stick around. I think they know this is their last shot at it, or one of their last chances at it. So I think they're going to put in that little extra motivation, a little extra drive, and I think Pittsburgh comes out on top. Moving on to round 2, it's Tampa and Florida once again. A lot of people might have Tampa winning this series, but I'm going to say Florida, and why not? Florida got a lot more deeper offensively, and I think this does come down to depth. Yes, Tampa got Nick Paul, and they got Brandon Hagel, but that Florida offense is so deep, up and down the lineup. They could play all 4 lines. They look dangerous, and for that reason, I'm going to give the edge to Florida, and they'll be facing off against the Boston Bruins. The Atlantic Division was stacked, and I think Boston against Pittsburgh has the upper hand. Now, Ullmark's lack of playoff experience could be a reason why they could lose this series, but I like Boston as a complete team overall, and I think Pittsburgh comes up short. Now, with Florida and Boston in the Eastern Conference Final, I'm going to pick the Florida Panthers to represent the Eastern Conference and make it to the Stanley Cup Final in, we're gonna say, 6 games. I'd like to see Florida make a deep run. I think they have the potential to make a deep run. I have them in the Stanley Cup Final facing off against the Colorado Avalanche. I'm gonna be honest, this is extremely hard to predict. When looking at the two teams head to head, obviously you want to pick Colorado. But if I pick Florida, a lot of people are gonna look at me like, what? Florida? When thinking about it more and more, my heart wants to say Florida, but I'm gonna say Colorado. This is going to kill me if they get out in like the second or third round. I'm picking Colorado. I'm sorry, that's my pick. I know a lot of people are gonna be picking Colorado here. Part of me doesn't want to do it, but I think they're gonna end up on top. I think it's gonna be Colorado. Now you may be thinking, well, Colorado's bottom lines aren't that deep as opposed to Florida's, when you literally made that a reason why they're taking down Tampa Bay and Boston. And you could be right. I'm picking this to go the distance, 7 games. This is really gonna make me upset if Colorado disappoints me again. I think they do have a lot of expectations to make it on a deep run because they're so stacked, but I'm gonna pick Colorado, and if it bites me, it bites me. I enjoy doing this with no script, kind of on the fly, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know who you think will win the Stanley Cup. I'm gonna be having a bracket challenge you guys can join. I'll link it down below, and I'll pin it in the comment section as well. Let's see how close you guys can get, and let's see how accurate I can be. We got a new video coming out soon. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.